Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to introduce our special guest today, Helmut Kessmann, who is joining us from Basel this morning, or actually he arrived yesterday night. Helmut got his PhD actually in plant natural products in Münster, and he then moved to the SOC in San Diego. Spent a while, I think 2 years at the SOC, and then came back to Europe, joined Novartis company for 7 years. And after that, it becomes complicated because he has been involved in several startup companies, which were all somehow related to antibiotics, antibiotic development, startups in the Basel area. He also worked for Polyfor and recently became a driving force in the INCATE community, which is something he will tell us about today, which is of special interest for all of us, as this is intended to be an incubator for early projects from academia to be translated, and it's funded between the DZIF and our collaborators in Basel. So really happy that Helmut took the time to come here and discuss with us these developments. Thanks for joining us, Helmut.
Okay, thank you very much, Wolf and the team here for inviting me and giving the opportunity to talk about the view on the antibiotic startup and business at the moment, but in particular on the translational part and what we have done here with INCATE. But let me start with a statement. I think it's the perfect time to be in antibiotics. You know, it's a very good time to be there. It doesn't matter if you're a microbiologist or chemist or any other profession, because we are at the turning point of the antibiotic field, really after many years, where this field had maybe not enough attention as it deserved. And now it's time to increase the efforts again. And in my presentation, I will first talk a bit about what is the issue, and then give you my view on why it is an issue and why it hasn't been solved yet, and then talk about how it can be solved and what that particular INCATE is doing. And at the end, I give you a bit of my personal view, if anybody is interested to start a company. I need to move this here. Which button here? Okay, very good. I hope you can all see the slide. Let's start. What is the issue? There's been a very nice paper in Lancet in January summarizing basically the need and the threat of antimicrobial resistance. And already today, we see more people dying from drug-resistant bugs than from malaria or HIV. Well, it's nothing theoretical we are talking about. This is real. We have 1 million deaths per year, and in various disease areas. So at the moment, it's not as high on the visibility as COVID, but it's there. And most critical are, of course, the lung infections, bloodstream sepsis, abdomen and urinary tract. And in particular, the lung infection, sepsis, and abdominal are, of course, pretty life-threatening. The WHO has defined the top priority pathogens, and most of you know this list: Acinetobacter, Pseudomonas, and bacteria. That are the most critical ones, but there are others low on the list, but still very important. In addition, there is tuberculosis, of course. This is not on the list because this is usually handled by a separate alert mechanism. There at the WHO, but doesn't mean it's less important. So we already have an history. And we all know now, unfortunately, how a pandemic looks like in the case of COVID. 400 million infections, 5 million deaths. So we all know that. And we all know the pictures from the hospital. We see AMR, we see the slow pandemic in various places, various diseases. And it's already there, as we just said. And we know it can happen in a large scale, anytime, anywhere. But we don't know at the moment where, if it happens. So it's really time now to act and be prepared and fight the antimicrobial resistance. Why hasn't it been done yet? And most of you, again, know this picture now. This is on the website from Tim Lewis, a picture summarizing the antibiotic discovery and launch. There hasn't been a new class of gram-negative antibiotics for the last 50 years. You all know that. And there has been a very slow discovery and launch of very few novel antibiotics. So it's a pretty dry desert area. And why is that the case? And I'll show you then next slides a few more details. But the fact is, today, the investment which goes into antibiotic startup companies and biotech companies is close to zero compared to other areas like oncology. On the other side, as most big pharmas have exited the field, all the development is usually done in biotechs. By far, most of the around 40 clinical projects in antibiotics are run by biotech companies. So when there's not much investment and a lot of projects, you can see there is also an issue on the funding side. But that's the situation. A bit more on the background. And the antibiotic is a special area from the business side, from the R&D side. And let me give a new aspect of that. First, what makes antibiotic R&D different? First, antibiotic R&D is expensive, but it's not more expensive than, for example, oncology or other areas. By developing a novel antibiotic, bringing to the market, you talk about 500 million to 1 billion at least. On the other side, the economics of antibiotics are considered poor. It means you can't make as much money as in other areas. And the problem is the antibiotics are often used as a last resort. So you cannot sell as much as you can. You need to be very responsible. And resistance is the risk. So you spend all the money, and at the end, you lose your drug in a short time. So that's a challenge. And if you look to the economics, if you look now to the right side, you see what investment and the economics of the various disease areas. You see that the cancer, oncology, is by far, besides maybe neurology, the most profitable area. And antibiotics are not on top of the list. So, and if you know, and this mirrors actually the investment interest in the industry. Actually, more than half of the biotech companies are in oncology. And if you look to the number of projects in development, again, oncology is by far the most dominant area. So that's where we are. And that, but now the question is how we solve it. And many people and now maybe giving a positive spin. Many people over the last years have sought how to change it. And there has been a lot of goodwill, a lot of effort to bring this now into a more positive territory. Again, we need a new business model for antibiotics to make it a really hot area again. And we are close to that. Again, let me summarize the challenges in R&D is, I think, is the bug itself. It mutates, it maybe get resistant, and you don't know what is the most important bug in a certain time. The clinical development isn't easy, often, particularly if you have specific areas like antiviral inspectors or selective antibiotics. But quite frankly, this can be solved. This is challenging, but it can be solved. But there's also the whole area of responsible use of novel antibiotics. And I think we all agree when we develop a novel antibiotics, we need to market it together with good stewardship and very careful use. So if you want to develop and make the area more attractive, you need two things. One is you need to increase the R&D efforts, which is summarized under these push incentives. On the other side, you need to make the market somehow more attractive. If you don't want to go into your charity, then you have to make the market more attractive. And now I think some of you know that in 2010, Sally Davis became Chief Medical Officer in England and gave an impressive wake-up call to the politicians in England and beyond. Then there was a famous O'Neill report. Lord O'Neill in the UK started to look into the economics of novel antibiotics and wrote a famous report. So since 10 years, people think about how to change the field and find a model which works well. And there has been now several reports from O'Neill, from several consulting companies, from the BEAM Alliance, the European Association of Small and Mid-sized Biotech Companies and Antibiotics, and so on. So a lot of people thought about that. And everybody agrees we need a kind of new business model to make the antibiotic area more attractive. We need increased public financing, significantly increased financing for innovation and translation in the industry. We need a global coordination of all these funding mechanisms because bugs are global. And stewardship, and we need education and training because for young companies or also pharma companies now, it's getting more and more difficult to find good and experienced talent. Because they didn't educate them for a long time, and I think in training and educating is another key area. So let me summarize where we are today. And again, there has been a lot of brain behind that, a lot of goodwill, and also some action actually got realized. That's the reason we believe it's a turning point now for the antibiotic. Let me start here with this one. You are more familiar, I think, with the funding better than I am from the research side. And then if you take a product into preclinical development, we have now a global R&D fund called CAPEX. It's a 500 million global fund, which is located in Boston, but backed globally, which has funding from the US government, from Germany also, Wellcome Trust and others. So that's already a good pot of money. And it has been invested since 2016. And we expect a new fund comes up soon. The Novo Foundation has set up a novel fund, that's more venture capital fund, $165 million available for innovative antibiotic companies around preclinical stage and beyond. Interestingly, the pharmaceutical industry, following the experience of COVID, has created a new fund called the AMR Action Fund. It's a 1 billion fund. It's paid in by all the major pharmaceutical companies. And this fund is available for funding biotech companies with a goal to develop 2 to 4 novel antibiotics until 2030. And this shows, I think, there is money available. There is also interest, I think, to move things forward. And then we have more special organizations like BARDA, which is basically the US Health Ministry. They have almost unlimited funding available for what they call biothreat pathogens, which are those pathogens which could be used by terrorists. And so Yersinia, Malaria, and so on. And on the other side, we have GARD-P, which focuses more on the medical needs of the developing countries, focusing, for example, on newborn sepsis, Malaria, and some other specific areas of interest. So, bottom line is, if you have started a company, there is no funding vehicles available, certainly not enough, but then it's not easy to get, it's still competitive, but it looks better, I can tell you, than some years ago. But again, more needs to be done here. But there is not much money available on the translation side. So if you have a project here and you really want, you have still a baby company and you want to grow it up to, let's say, mid-preclinical stage, you need still a few million. And for this very early stage, there's basically still not enough money available. That's the reason we call it the Death Valley. That's what we want to solve a bit. But that's an issue. So once you have an innovative product in mid-preclinical stage, that's better chance to get funded. On the other side of the value chain is the market. And here is something which is really new and has been developed now, and it's piloted now in several countries, which is a novel business model, which is called the Netflix model, right? Which that everybody understands. You can also call it Spotify model, it doesn't matter, but it basically means that the hospitals, government institutions pay a fixed fee per year to the companies for an innovative antibiotic, like a subscription, independent on the use, right? So, and with this, the company basically can recover the R&D costs. And then, if there is a need for this drug, then the company has to supply whatever is needed. So, as you can imagine, if this comes true, this will change the field. It means if you have to qualify your novel antibiotic with a certain label, it has to be innovative, works against AMR, so on. And but when you have this label, which is given then most likely by the FDA or the EMA, then you qualify for such a subscription model. And if you then get this product approved, you have a secured income. Maybe not a profit, but a secured income. And of course, this model would be extremely attractive for the companies. It would boost innovation and it would boost new companies and investors. So at the moment, and we are talking about big money, at the moment this legislation is in Congress. It's not agreed. It's piloted in UK and Sweden, and it's in Congress now in the US. So maybe the legislation takes time, so it may take another 2, 3, 4 years until it's getting real, but something will happen. And because now the combination of the push incentives on one side and now the outlook that on the market side, that now comes or creates a situation that it's getting more attractive, more investors coming back, also more companies, and now it's the right time to start a company in that field. Good. That was the initial part. So I hope I didn't want to be too negative at the beginning, but I think it's important to understand where we are coming from and where this whole field develops. Of course, this is more maybe the business, commercial view, but I hope helpful. So now INCATE. And INCATE, before I say what we're doing is, I want to say why we're doing it now. Maybe now it's easier to understand why we are talking about this today. You know, I said if you look to the middle part, there's positive movements with funds, with these bull pilots. So that's good. It's high on the agenda of the politician. AMR is on the agenda of the G7 presidency of Germany now. You know, and they're looking what can be done. So that's good. So we believe there's a political momentum, there's this momentum. Now the problem is, where's the pipeline? And that's the reason why we saw INCATE now is the right time. Where's the pipeline? If you have the money, if you are an investor and you have money, you want to invest into companies, it's not easy to find now a large number of innovative startup companies, as you, for example, find in oncology or in other areas. There are simply not enough companies. There are some good ones, but they're not enough. And that's the reason we saw 2 years ago, starting 2 years ago, and then also triggered by the Swiss Antibiotic initiative. That's time, I think, to make something happening here. And we started then INCATE, which got launched in July last year. What does INCATE do? INCATE is offering advice to companies, to startups, to founder teams. It can provide a bit of funding in a staged process, I'll show you. But the main task also of INCATE is to build a community of people have started or want to start an antibiotic company. So that's our mission: advice, community, and a bit of funding. In order to bridge the innovation, which is a lot in universities and the research institution, to really putting it into development, in building investable companies. So we are working a very easy, low hurdle fashion. Anybody can contact us if you want to start a company and you want to learn something about, or you have questions in R&D and funding, whatever is needed, you can call us and we try to help. Then if it costs money, then if you apply for cash, then we have the two-stage funding process. One is sold maybe for initial period 6 to 12 months, and it's make it 10,000 euros. But most importantly, you will go through a selection process, to a process where you make an application. It will be challenged by a number of people, and hopefully then that helps you to fine-tune your business plan. And then it all goes well, and you may apply then also for larger funding, which starts then after up to 1 year. So again, very simple. These applications are made online. It won't take you, I guess, stage 1 funding more than an hour to do that. But again, if you don't ask for the cash, we are available anyway for the finance. What are we looking for? We see the AMR issue has many topics. One of course are the antibiotics itself, directly antibiotics, indirect antiviral inspectors, but also diagnostics and or any other technology we haven't even thought about yet. So anything which works, including technologies and platforms, which helps the AMR topic are of interest. And it can even be artificial intelligence tools linked to diagnostics or to drug discovery. Can be any kind of directly acting compound like natural products, phages, DNA, mRNA technologies, anything is here of interest. But very focused on antibacterials. How are we organized? So it started, first I think with the anti-resist initiative in Switzerland, which is a large Swiss initiative, 28 million over the next 3 years. But then we got in contact with the translational office in Braunschweig, and then with Infect Control in Jena, Florian, and Spackhage. And we got very, very positive support from the start. I have to say this was very motivating for all of us to bring this together. So, we had this idea. And also I have to mention University of Basel, extremely supportive. And, we came with an idea and they even gave us some funding to get this all started. So very positive. As positive was the feedback from the industry. So, we talked to, these are the, MSD and Chirurgy are the leading companies in the antibiotic field. Talked to Roche in Basel, but also Boehringer. Boehringer will move into antibiotics, as you know, but they're all looking for innovation. They said, great idea. We need to revitalize the field. That was always a bit the buzzword, and get as many companies off the ground as possible. And then if they're at a certain stage, what we always have the word investable, so it means usually mid-preclinical stage, if you have a normal antibiotic, then you can partner with us, we may invest, whatever. So there is really a win-win situation. So there's an interest to translate innovation. On the other side, there's an interest to pick up innovation and develop it. And INCATE wants to bring it together and help to make this happen. So actually, the industry partner, they give a little bit of money to make this, this anti-dilutive pot of money, which we can then allocate to the companies. You see, this is on our website. It's for people, Gloria and Doug, myself. So whenever you have a question in the specific areas, contact us or call us. How do we work? Again, very easy. We want first outreach, promoting. That's a lot of our activities. You know, we talk almost daily with interested founders, have questions. Is my invention interest? That's the usual question. And we have this kind of discussion, or already more advanced, and we talk about starting the company. We give feedback, advice. There are quarterly calls for projects. And when you ask for money, then you need to go to this online application, and then we select and give awards to this company. If you see, we are doing quite a bit of promotion via social media, meetings, events. In April, we also had our first antibiotic startup event in Basel. I'm very proud, I think, that we were able to get this off the ground. We had around 20 applications, and 10 of those will present in Basel at the AMR conference. So, and you see basically also this was from Trump, the Biotech Europe journal. That's the sentiment at the moment. Optimism is back. Now it's time to do something. We have reviewed so far around 40 projects. Some are very early stage, some are already incorporated and really good companies. They come mainly all over Europe. We also have applications from Israel, US, India, but it's still mainly in Europe. But everybody can apply. The applications are mostly from directly acting antibiotics, some viral inspectors, some phages that are the main fields, few diagnostics. And they're all naturally early stage. The companies, what they're looking for, almost every company said, or founder teams, unless they already had a good scientific advisory board, say, what is a competitive target profile? What do I need to develop? If I have a compound which works against E. coli, Acinetobacter, what is the target profile I need to work on? That's the most, how do you say, the most frequent question we get. Competitive target profile. Then the question is, okay, this is the target profile. How do I test it in a professional way? You know, what are the CROs which do this kind of work? What are the service providers? And of course, people ask for funding. You know, you're starting a company, you need funding. Some also have regulatory questions. You have a viral inspector, for example. This is a challenging regulatory path. And advice on building the team. But this is pretty much in the order of questions we get. This is a committee we are working with is, you know, Roche, Boehringer, Shinogi, MSD, one person each, Mark Gitzinger, you may know, representing the Beam Alliance and the Bioversus, Isabel, from Paul-Ehrlich, you will know, and Jean-Pierre Paco, representing GAP-P. So they basically make selection in case you ask for funding. And for them, I think we now finished the first round, and I can say this works very well. Most important, I think, for this committee is innovation. They're really looking for novel things, novel products, novel innovation. And so here's a result of the first round. 40 applications, 15 have been proposed. The others are still in progress. 6 were invited for 5-minute pitch to the selection committee, and 4 were awarded. And I'm sure you know these, because you know microbiotics, smart bugs, in vitros. So 3 out of these companies are from Germany. That wasn't the plan, but it happened, and one really is a Finnish company developing an antiviral approach. So I think I can say today the INCATE is fully operational. You know, it's working. We are now starting our second round. Actually, that one is tomorrow. And so this is all working on. Okay, that's the INCATE, and there's 3 slides at the end to give you maybe a bit more relaxed view on. You know, I'm doing this kind of startup business the last 25 years, and I wanted to give you a bit of personal feedback on what is a bit of lessons learned. Just 3 slides, and the one thing is, you usually start a company when it's not mainstream. You do something when you believe in a technology, and it's not on the news yet. It's something new. Otherwise, you won't do it. And you get the typical quotes you hear. And I say that because you shouldn't be motivated by hearing that. The first thing is there's no market. So forget it. Try to find a solid job. You want to have a family or something, then forget it. So then something which is also not very good quote is, in particular, elderly people tend to do say, I've never heard of that, so it can't be any good. So these are not very motivating things, but you have to, you will hear that. Then another killer is that I tried something similar 20 years ago and it didn't work. Again, not very motivating. And then there's, you hear often say, if this is really good, what you say, why hasn't other people done it? Why hasn't Big Pharma picked it up yet? So, and you have to deal with that. And then suddenly, you reach a tipping point. And suddenly, the sentiment changes. People say, okay, great technology, and get totally excited. And, you know, and we have the best example we have today is with the mRNA technology. You know, CureVac was started in 2000 and BioNTech 2008. You know, and we all know it's today. So, and then you may face some problems and people say, yeah, I told you it's difficult. And then you may reach again a kind of low point. So it's a roller coaster. And if it's something good, you get again this kind of quote. It may not save mankind, but it looks viable. And at a certain point in time, when it's taken over by many companies, you say, yeah, the quote is, I said it all the time, and glad I pushed for it. So be prepared to hear that, because with antibiotics, we are just at the left side of the chart here. So take it easy. The second point is, this is a bit trivial, it's all about the team. Starting a company, it's all about the team. You can't do it yourself, you need to have a few people, and it's a challenging field. Make sure you have the right team, the right skill set, and because it is, as you've seen, a roller coaster, and you know, make sure you have the right people. All things start small, you know, and everything is starting big, and you know, and that's always the motto. It will be challenged, so don't give up too early. And yeah, that was just a bit my experience over the years. But coming back now to INCATE, if you want to start a company, you need advice, community or funding, contact us. Just contact us. Go to the website and don't be afraid. But also, if you would like to support, you know, if you are an expert in a certain area which could be of interest to startup companies and you have time and want to help, let us know. Yes. Good. With this, I'll stop. And thank you. Any questions now or later?
Thanks, Helmut. Great talk. I think we can monitor if there are questions in the chat.
Not yet.
But potentially there are questions in the room. So let me start. Obviously, there has been a lot of move and development in this area over the last, say, almost 20 years. Well, little move in the first 10, but more in the second. Now that there is CARB-X and IMI and also the repair fund, and also INCATE sort of, it's a very positive development, but at the same time, these institutions all compete for the best projects. And you have taken a decent look at what you critically remarked as the potential pipeline. So if people talk about the pipeline in this area, always compare it rather to a capillary than a pipeline. So what would be your personal note on this? Will we see very quickly that all promising projects already have partners and there is little coming from basic research, or are you optimistic that there will be enough to continuously fill the pipeline under the given circumstances?
Good point. I personally believe we have, at the moment, we have already a number of good small companies around, and now I think it will take another 2, 3, 4 years to have this pipeline we need in the antibiotic field. So it's nothing we can do overnight. It will take a bit of time, but considering the medical needs, the increasing funding, also know in general the interest of young people to start a company is much more positive than 10 years ago. I believe there will be a strong growth, and it doesn't need a lot. I think it needs, it needs a good community. It needs, it doesn't need a lot of money per se. It needs the spirit, it needs the community, the network. And I think it's seen also in institutions like this, you motivate people to move forward. That's very, very important. And then I'm very optimistic. I've seen it in other areas. Look to the orphan drug arena, 2005 when it started. Nobody knew about it. 5 years later, it was a darling of the industry. So,
yeah, thanks. I couldn't agree more, especially with your point on the community and the next generation scientists, which are urgently needed. There is a question in the chat.
Thomas Hesterkamp, online.
Hello, Helmut. Great talk. Thank you very much for coming out. Helmut, my question relates to the second funding term of CARB-X. So somehow we have lost visibility of where CARB-X stands with their own funding. Do you have any insight for us as to when CARB-X Reloaded will be launched? Thank you.
To be open, no. And I'm afraid you maybe hear it even earlier than I do, because Germany is a major funder of CARB-X. I know they're very active. I hope by mid of the year. Maybe we hear more about it at the AMR conference in April.
Thank you.
Many thanks for the great talk. My question is, what would INCATE prefer? What kind of projects should they be as late as possible or also earlier projects?
What stage of projects?
Yes.
I think we are looking at very early stage. People have an idea. This week, and somebody had an idea. I have a certain antibody approach, and can this be used for antibiotics? I have some very early data, and this would be the earliest. I think that's the concept that we talk about. Concept. But the typical thing is that people have a series, maybe a target, have a concept, a technology approach, and often early MIC data, and they get excited about this whole thing and they want to start a company. And then the typical question is, again, what is the target profile? Where do I get funding? How can I get actually started? And that's basically our always say this is a bit of our sweet spot, you know. There is already something, and most important, there is a founder, there is a team. What we are not doing is, what we often get approached by technology transfer offices and say, here's my patent, what can I do with it? But that's not our role. You know, we want to build teams.
Thank you.
Yeah, also quite impressed by your talk and your positive view on things. It's good that these things come back. There was a period, maybe 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, when funding for starting companies was quite easy. Then it turned a little bit down, and now apparently it comes back. Is this the only model in which you trust? So like supporting spin-offs from academia, or actually what I wanted to know, where do you see the role of academia, of institutions like ours and also university? Is the major task to educate people, give them ideas, and then say, okay, good luck, start your company, maybe I'm with you? Or do you see also a collaborative role, you know, that was also in pharma? Still, I see that in other areas, that there is, let's say, projects like the IMI ones, or also in many European, also BMBF projects, where there is a public-private partnership. Would of course be interesting to see that branch as well. But so not, you know, send your people out, be on your own, do this, but also collaborations for institutes like us with smaller, with bigger pharmas on certain projects. There's also, when I talk to people in the bigger industry, the bigger companies, they say, well, this is quite risky and we need to find something. And if, of course, you're lucky and there is a call from EU or IMI, which fits in your predatory scheme, then you go ahead and say, wow, let's jump on this. But in this area, unfortunately, there is not too much yet. And sometimes one would wish if one could approach somebody like you and more in a bottom-up rather than top-down approach. Well, okay, that would maybe just...
Yeah, it's a wide area. Of course, the main function of the institute is the innovation itself. I think to motivate people to move forward with innovation, actually. And then when it comes to translation, I think it's, I would say, this good and to motivate the people to move forward, to create an atmosphere where this is considered positive, and don't get this negative quotes at the start. You know, here I know it's you already are at that stage, but it's not at every place. I have to say, you know, I think here is good in other universities also. I know it's good. So motivate people, check it out, and just create a positive atmosphere. That's most important. And then how it is realized, that depends case by case. Sometimes it makes sense that the project goes directly, maybe even sometimes with the people in a collaboration with pharma, or there's a company formed and this contracts back a significant part of the research back to the institute, often with government funding or other public funding, European funding. But again, that also here we see our role. You know, that, for example, if there is company developing a technology has some funding available, but the most part of the research is still ongoing at the university, we have to find a deal structure where, you know, there's on one side research funded at the university, but also the rights are regulated for the company. You know what I mean? That there's a proper tech transfer agreement, proper license.
The question that I actually wanted to ask is the funding, your funding model, is this always implicating the foundation of the company, or do you also fund projects?
We don't fund projects. What we would also support is collaborations. People come and say, I would like, it's a great stuff, I need a partner, for example. You know, I need a pharma company to get interested in this. We will also look at. But what we are not doing is funding the research at the institute itself. No, sure, not our job.
All right, so I think I'm up. Thanks for the talk. It was nice to learn more about INCATE. My question is regarding the industry partners involved in INCATE. Is there an incentive for them to be part of the group, or is this a voluntary thing that they do?
See, there's no strings attached, in a legal sense. I think the main incentive for the pharma companies to participate here is to build the community, to really make it a viable startup community. I think that's the main incentive. They, of course, they are part of the selection committee and they see the projects, but they can always talk to the companies one-to-one. And there's basically no further strings attached. Now I think the main incentive is developing the community.
Okay, great, thanks.
So there's one more question by Ahmed Tarek Osman. He's asking, is there a good potential for products in the diagnostics and precision medicine, or higher potentials are mainly in the therapeutic side?
Yeah, also a good point is we see more and more diagnostic projects now. We haven't seen many at the very start, but I would say 80%, 90% is in antibiotics, violence, including the violence approaches, immunology approaches, and now maybe 10% diagnostic. And so I guess this will increase. We also see an increasing number of projects more applying the combination of artificial intelligence and diagnostics and drug discovery. So,
All right, Helmut, thanks for enlightening us. So Helmut will be on site for the rest of the day. If somebody wants to talk with Helmut, it will be fine. We can arrange it. Please make contact with Alvin. So thanks again, and we look forward to the continuation of the visit.
thank you. Thank you all also on the Zoom.